Welcome back to another edition of AI Rabbit Holes. This is a video series where we go down the rabbit hole of artificial intelligence, and I'm super excited for this video as I'm featuring Mark Kashef. Now, Mark is an AI expert and honestly one of the few YouTubers in this space I've come across who actually shines light on reality and doesn't just push all the hype and noise like everyone else does. So I had the chance to meet Mark last year at N8N's event in New York City. So Mark, thank you so much for hopping on. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. It's great that we met, and it's good that it culminated in this. So thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be diving into Mark's 2026 AI playbook and why the winners this year won't be the people who are chasing the latest and greatest AI tools, but the ones who have kind of mastered those systems and are getting more technical in the AI space. So, Mark, let's start here. You've noted in your recent video that 2026 is the year of depth over breadth. So, when it comes to AI, can you elaborate on that and kind of what changed this moment?
For sure. So 2022, 2023, things were just happening. ChatGPT occurred, and the world didn't know what to do with it. And then startups started popping up out of nowhere. This company called Anthropic who raised money months after ChatGPT came out, billions of dollars, and people were like, what's happening? And then Google was barred, and Google was literally the laughing stock of the world for a while because they had no idea what to do, even though they invented the technology that ChatGPT brought to the world. So 2022, 2023 was about finding your feet. There's just so much happening that it would be kind of irresponsible to dig your heels in and go to one certain zone or tool or model because too many things were changing. So over the past, let's say 12 months, a lot of things have come out for sure, but many changes in the marketplace. There's been like mass consolidation. There's been a mass saturation of AI tools, vibe coding tools, and now the big boys, the Anthropics, the Geminis, the kind of OpenAIs have kind of automated a lot of these startups and created layers upon layers. We don't need the middleware as much, meaning you can now kind of pick your poison with some form of foresight to be like, okay, Gemini did X, Y, and Z. I'm betting that this company is going to keep doing that. So if I'm going to build all Gemini, it's not a bad bet. Or I'm a coder and I love Anthropic models. They're pro developer. I'm going to just double click there. We're in that zone where the musical chairs will keep going, but the music is starting to slow down, meaning there's only going to be a handful left. It always happens. You have industries where everything happens and you have millions of micro companies. And then it goes through this mass massacre consolidation event back to only a few. And we're about to get to that last part.
Yeah, and the big three, right? Anthropic, Google, and OpenAI. And that was going to lead into my next question here for anyone listening or watching. If you had to go all in on one of those ecosystems, what would you tell someone?
Okay, the first thing I would say is if I just gave you a statement or an answer to that point blank, I would be doing your audience a disservice.
There's a lot of nuance.
Super nuanced. So if you are an organization that is primarily Microsoft first, meaning like your whole stack is on Microsoft Suite and it's deeply embedded and you've been using it for 10 years, for me to tell you to burn that all down overnight just to use Gemini's API would be foolish. You take what you get, but you want to make the most out of it. So if you are on the Microsoft stack, then Azure has access to Azure OpenAI, but also a bunch of other models. You deal with what you have and you can go really deep unless you see some things, let's say in the Google workspace, where it is such a game changer for your organization, your business, that it's a no-brainer to have to go through the pain to get there. You just have to size where you are if you are tethered to a stack. If you're not tethered, then you go to the path of least resistance and the most abundance and the companies that you bet on. And you can usually now see, OpenAI has pseudo ADHD in terms of what they're building. They're building some apparently a pen, a smart pen that's coming out in a year or two.
I've heard people refer to them as the MySpace of AI companies now. I
or
can
AOL,
I can
AOL,
see it going
Yahoo.
that way.
Yes, I also see memes on X because I'm now starting to get really active on X. Ninja Turtles, where like ChatGPT was like mentoring the small Ninja Turtles, and now all of them are patting on the back while it's an old geezer. I think we're kind of there because a lack of focus always leads to the same scenario in every single company. And I think OpenAI tried to be everything to everybody, and now they're starting to be nothing to nobody.
Yeah, remember when Agent Builder was supposed to kill N8N?
Yes, that's I got crucified for making a YouTube video saying this is garbage and it won't be developed. I can guarantee you.
Or even, or what's Atlas, the browser? Remember when that was supposed to kill Google Chrome? I mean, we could go on and on here.
I made a video about Atlas because I thought it was like a decent upgrade on what was there, but I fell for it again where they left yet another half-built bridge where they build something and then it's MIA for the next like year or two until they feel like releasing an update of some sort.
You know, I'm bearish OpenAI, and this is kind of a little different topic here. Very bullish Google and also very bullish Anthropic. I think the AI generalist is better suited on Google's AI suite, where you have more of the enterprise big business that might be better suited on Anthropic's AI suite. What is your response to that?
Google is the best generalist company for all generative AI functionality. They have a great service for everything, which is you can't say the same for OpenAI. So Gemini has a great chat model, very high rate limits, pretty cheap at cost, pretty intelligent. They have the arguably right now the best image model in the world, one of the best video models in the world. Just you can keep stacking on. They also have a RAG system called file search, which makes it super easy. They are like the master of all trades, not just the jack of all trades, which is a big distinction. I would say OpenAI is a jack of all trades. Gemini is the master of all trades.
Yeah, and the thing with Google obviously is their ecosystem and their giant moat in data and infrastructure. Let's not forget distribution here, Mark, too, with they own Android, they own Google Chrome. I mean, they are just in the hands of everything. And I do not see them losing this run in the long run. There's just no way.
Yeah, sometimes, I used to watch sports a lot, especially like basketball, soccer. When you start at a huge disadvantage and you regain a lead, it's very rare that you give it up because you've already been through the pain. So Google started out as the laughing stock and nobody's laughing anymore. And now that they smell blood, they're doubling down. And the thing that makes it economically possible is they don't need NVIDIA. They have their own chips. They have their own compute. They can afford to bleed cash on AI products and still survive because they have their Google Ads business. They have different areas. OpenAI is like it's super dependent. It needs dependence on compute, it needs dependence on distribution, and it needs to buy proprietary data to keep training their models to get better. Google has infinite data glitch where they don't even need that.
Yeah, YouTube. I mean, endless. It's really endless. Let's keep talking positive about Google here so the YouTube algorithm rewards me in the back end. Trust me, that's a quick little hack that I've seen happen on my channel if you talk positive about Google's AI products. But anyways, I would consider 2025, kind of shifting back on this conversation here, the year of AI automations, and I would say early agents, right? Where we had N8N take off, Make.com, Zapier, although I think Zapier and Make are more on the decline versus an N8N per se. But I think 2026 is more of the terminal technical year, it seems, as Claude Code has already taken everything by storm. We have IDEs out like Cursor and Google Anti-Gravity. So let's talk about that now, Mark. Like, what is all this hype around Claude Code to start the year?
Sure. And I want to be clear to the audience. I'm personally a huge fan of Claude Code, but I and my team at Prompt Advisors will always go to the thing that works the best for the cheapest and like the best path forward. Right now, it's Claude Code. The reason why is they have a very sophisticated model called Opus 4.5, which by the time this recording goes out, it could be 4.7 or 5 at this rate. It's done a great job at making code an afterthought for many things, not everything, for many things.
It's a pretty deceiving name because they're not actually going in there and coding things in the terminal, right?
Yeah, so I told a lot of people that they should have called it Claude Create, not Claude Code. But they just came out with Claude Cowork, which is their attempt to give one more layer for someone that is non-technical. But the terminal gives you access to the roots. Things like N8N and Make.com, great tools. I use N8N still in my business and some clients' businesses, but they are one layer above from code. Now that the coding part is easier, and now you have agentic workflows that you can build in Claude Code, being in the terminal, one, gives the terminal access to your entire laptop. Meaning, if you need to grab a file, if it needs to install something in your environment, it can take care of everything autonomously. That's one big thing. The next thing is, because you can open multiple terminals, and each one is a blank slate in context, you can have like 5 or 6 tasks running at the same time. So if you know what you're doing, you can be hyper productive. And the last thing that I would say is there's a feedback loop. In ChatGPT, if you go and say, make me an image or a thumbnail for this podcast, and it's garbage, you can try 5, 10, 15 times and wait for it. In Claude Code, when it learns what it did wrong, you could say, I want you to update your scripts so this never happens again. I want you to update your memory so this never happens again. And you can put Ryan's face always on the right side, never on the left side, always on the right side. There is feedback loop. In closed products, there is no feedback loop.
And this is where we get into skills a little bit. Can you elaborate on like kind of how Claude skills come into the picture here?
Sure. So as an analogy or a bridge, imagine that you go and spend 100 hours learning how to prompt, and you finally learn how to prompt. To you, Ryan, that learning is abstracted in some like frameworks you have, some like go-tos, some cheat sheet. A skill essentially is a compressed version of your understanding. So what a skill looks like underneath the hood is it's a bunch of words describing what the goal is, and then it has a series of functions in Python that it wrote, not you, and it tells it what to do with those functions and what to do with the output of those functions. So once you have a learned skill, so for me, I have a skill for making thumbnails. And in that skill, it's a bunch of Python that I didn't write that tells it, hey, because when Mark makes a thumbnail, he doesn't want the timestamp to be on top of words, make sure you always put Mark on the right-hand side of any thumbnail. It's these learnings that happen, and now that's an acquired skill. Meaning, instead of having to make Claude figure it out from scratch every time, it goes and says, oh, I already know this. Let me go and inject this context into the conversation.
Yeah, and Anthropic also has, I believe, a GitHub repository of like a skill creator. So you could use their skill creator to help you create skills. It's kind of the rabbit hole that I've been going down recently.
Skillception, yes. So you use the skill to make the skill. The best thing for your audience to know is make a skill when it makes sense. When you have something you do more than twice and you want it to be somewhat consistent after those 2 times. That's where a skill makes sense, because you want it to cement some understanding of the way to do something.
And obviously, when you pair that with Claude Code, the opportunities are endless here. And that's the benefit of using these types of skills versus a GPT or a project or one of those web app versions of customized AI.
You can think of actually each skill, of which you can have tens, as a custom GPT that you would have spent 6 hours building. But now you can compartmentalize it into a micro skill. And that's one small piece of this big engine. We haven't even spoken about sub agents, the fact that you can spin up digital employees that all have separate tasks that, as long as you're smart enough and proactive enough on giving the right tasks that don't collide or overlap, then you can have skills, you can have agents using skills, you can have agents using skills and MCP servers. This can become like a positive monster very quickly.
Yeah. So one thing I've been trying to wrap my head around, we were talking a little bit about this before I hit record. You know, I'm a marketer, I'm a content creator. I'm trying to wrap my head around, Mark, as someone who's not technical. I don't have a technical background. I have a marketing content background. Why should I drop, my existing AI automations and workflows in Make, N8N, and other workflows that I have that are efficient in my manner versus taking that time investment into a terminal and Claude Code, learning it, transferring all my workflows there, and everything that goes into that? Kind of elaborate why I should consider doing that this year.
Cool. I would change one word from should to could, because everything is nuanced. So if there are things working in the business that are on N8N and is an amazing platform, keep it running if it's doing its job.
By should, I guess I'm referring to all those gurus with the confusing terminals on LinkedIn saying that you should just drop what you're doing and look at this now.
Yes, exactly. So if you have a workflow in your head that's been really tricky, or you couldn't wrap your head around how you would build it in Make.com or N8N, or as a marketer, you have enough of a hard time just driving business, running the business, you don't want to work in the business as much, Claude Code can do everything that these other platforms can do, because the role of N8N and Make.com was to help people avoid writing code to do X. And they've abstracted away, let's say, authentication for certain services. So Claude Code now is the root. And now you could just talk to it and say, listen, here's documentation on Go High Level. Here's documentation on Gemini. Make me a dashboard where it will go through my contacts, do some research about them, and tell me if they're a good lead for X offer. You can do that now. All you have to do is feed the beast the markdown files or the documentation of what it has to be familiar with, and then it goes from there. That's the big difference there. Where it makes sense to still use Make.com or N8N is, let's say you have a tricky software. Let's say you're using Salesforce. Salesforce doesn't have the most straightforward API, especially if you don't even know what the word API is. You probably don't want to deal with it, even if Claude Code is handling a lot of it. So since Make.com and N8N have a couple click way to log into your Salesforce, maybe it makes sense for now you start off still using N8N for those. But if something's like, listen, I just want to be able to upload some text, have it generate XYZ, and make a bunch of posts and PDFs, dip your toes, give Claude Code a chance. It might be a much higher leverage opportunity.
And there's a big difference too, right, between using it for internal tasks versus shipping something off to a client. You talked about that earlier too, if you want to elaborate more.
Sure, yeah, especially if you're not technical. If you're building something for a client and you build it on Claude Code, you want to think about, do you know how to transfer what's working locally on your computer to somebody else? Do you have that skill set? Do you have the skill set to also make sure it's ready from a security standpoint? If the answers are no across the board, then end makes sense because the way you build it is visually makes sense. If you have a client that's not technical, when you explain left to right what's happening, they can follow along and audit it and change it. And then when it comes to handoff, it's just taking a JSON file, throwing it over, they import it, you set up the credentials, and you're good to go. So based on where you are on that technical scale and the technical difficulty, that's where you gauge what makes the most sense. If you want to build a Claude Code dashboard that you host somewhere and someone logs into it, okay, now we're talking Claude Code versus Anyden.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Do you think this Claude Code or Claude Cowork hype is justified in terms of will it eventually replace the automation platforms? Will it eventually replace the vibe coding tools like the Lovables of the world? Like, where do you see this all going?
So that's a great question. So things like Lovable and Bolt and insert name here of vibe coding startup, which we have many, they will always have their share of the market. Canva didn't replace Photoshop, it didn't kill Photoshop.
That's a
If
good
you
point.
if you want to be hyper advanced at image editing, you still use Photoshop. If you just need the 80/20 and you just need the 80, Canva's more than fine. Lovable for many people that don't want to open a terminal, download something, even say the words Claude Code. If they just want to make a basic dashboard or a habit tracker, just go to Lovable and just crank it out 10 minutes, super base, one click, you're good to go. If you can't be bothered, there will always be people that don't want to be bothered. That's top of funnel. For the rest of the folks, and hopefully your audience, if you want to be an AI beast, that's where you want to keep scratching at where's the potential gold in this leverage equation.
Yeah, no, you explained that very well. So before we get into kind of your little screen share opportunity of Claude Code here, can you first elaborate like what are some just practical real world use cases that someone should consider using with Claude Code versus some really specific, developer use case that's not going to apply to someone?
Sure. So I have, as I was sharing off screen, 18 command centers. I call them command centers because, like we said, I layer on skills, I layer on tooling, layer on MCP servers. So each little folder or repo of mine is very potent in terms of what it can output. So one of them has been YouTube. And when I say YouTube, it's like I go back and forth. It goes and sees what's trending, what's performing. We have a conversation. Once we're done the conversation, it gives me a brief. It creates 15 thumbnails with my picture in it, gets my opinion on them. It has an AI audit it with the thumbnail strategist to be like, nah, this one sucks, this one sucks. Look at these, Mark. So it shortlists the thumbnails it created. It creates my SEO tags, my description, everything. And this helps me crank out way more content. Like I used to do one a week. Now we're going to do 3 a week because I can. Like all those little
Yeah, you've
micro.
been pumping lately. I've been seeing it.
Oh, we're just getting started. I'm going to go on a tear, and this is helping me do that. That's YouTube. Then I have this thing that I'll show you. It's really boring looking. It's called Copyright HQ. So the way I write on LinkedIn is different from the way I write posts on my school community versus the way I write posts on X. So I've taught it incrementally over the past month how I like to communicate in different mediums, including email. So I have this whole center where by folder, it's now has an understanding, a playbook. Oh, Mark wants to write a LinkedIn post. This is how I should look at it when I review it. I should use this expertise. So when you create this leverage, each one of these folders, you're going to see it's a folder, is just so high leverage in the output to input ratio. I give one input idea, it gives me infinite output.
Do you mind popping that up right now? And we can do a
Sure.
little screen share action.
Yeah, your audience is going to be heavily underwhelmed with what it looks like because it's just going to be a folder.
Well,
It's
that's
about
good. We want something simple and that's actually applicable. But also, too, I will say for more, details and information, I'd look at Mark's school community. I mean, he's not going to, of course, give all the secret sauce and hold your hand through all this stuff. So make sure you check that out.
I
If you wanna,
appreciate it.
yeah, get some more stuff from him.
Let's go. I appreciate it. Let me just share this bad boy. Screen. Boom, boom, boom. So, like I promised, super boring looking. So, Copywriter HQ, I'll show you one little hint here, and it will hopefully get the creative juices flowing for your audience. So, if I go to email, okay, this is what I did. If you go to Google, you can actually export your entire sent outbox. So, it's called Google Takeout. It'll take probably 12 hours to load all your sent and outbox. It'll give you this thing that's called a .mbox file. Most people won't be able to open that on their computer. You can give it to Claude Code and it will write, without you telling it, a Python function to open it and extract all of your email. So this is every email I've sent in the last 3 years. So then I told it, listen, I want you to use the cheapest language model you can find from Gemini to loop through each email and take notes, literally make markdown files as notes as to how I like to write my emails depending on the thread, the situation, and who I'm speaking to. I let that run for 2 hours. It came back with a playbook. It called it Mark Email Digital Twin, where it amalgamated a full understanding of exactly how I like to write, my punctuation, my no passive language, no wall of text, key rules, etc. And now when I tell it, I basically tell it, ClaudeMD acts as your command center. So all of these different folders are regulated by this bad boy right here.
Wow.
You can see right, school is school. School responses, school. If you keep going, email, anything related to email is related to these emails. So it maps functionality and understanding to each one of these folders here. Even when it comes to image generation, you'll see right now, it's understood when to use and where to use Nano Banana. And the fact that I want realism, not AI slop. You can see actual examples here. And I gave it ideas as to what AI slop means to me. It means like these cookie cutter LinkedIn photos that all look the same and look very AI generated.
Yeah.
This is an example of something that you can't just build in a day, because the building part's not the hard part. It's the iteration part. It's remembering to tell it, oh, by the way, when I make an image for, I don't know, a YouTube post, it's wildly different from how I want it to be for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's got to be polished with my branding. YouTube can be kind of whatever, something flamboyant and provocative. Those are the micro things where the ClaudeMD acts as the knowledge base or the brain.
So let's talk about this, Mark, in terms of like simplicity. If someone who's maybe dabbled in Claude Code a little bit like me, or maybe co-work now at this point, how easy is it to get something like this set up? I know it's going to take some time here, but in terms of just how long it's going to take, how, difficult it might be, if you're starting this from scratch, like what can someone expect?
So it's so lucky that your audience has something like this where I can go to Cowork, make a new task. Like just play with Cowork starting off, because it will give you the taste of what it looks like to have access to Claude Code. If Cowork is like the 30-40% of the firepower, if you just say something like organize my files or crunch this data, you will see on screen, it'll show you the progress, it'll show you the artifacts, all the context. This will give you enough of the 80-20 to get a feel for what it looks like to have an agentic workflow. And this will be only a sliver of the firepower you can get. When it comes to Claude, literally all you have to do is pick your editor of choice. There's many out there.
Yeah.
You can even use your terminal, but as a marketer, I doubt you want to stare at a boring terminal.
Yeah, so I use the Claude Mac app.
Yeah, Claude Mac is totally fair. If you want to use an editor for Claude Code specifically, then you could download Cursor for free. You don't need a plan. And then you'd go to this place called the Marketplace, and you download this extension called Claude Code for VS Code. This will avoid you staring at an ugly terminal, because you could just click on any file here. If I click on this little Claude emoji, and now you're using Claude Code. No ugly terminal. It's literally ChatGPT with a sidebar of files. Like it can't be any less intimidating.
Yeah, I love that. And so for anyone listening or watching, I mean, take notes now, because if you don't understand like what we're going through, what Cursor is, what Claude Code is, Cowork, I hate to be that guy, Mark, but you probably agree with me here. You're probably going to get left in the dust at some point if we don't at least start to pick some of this stuff up and do the very basics.
I hate saying that sentence because so many people misuse it like crazy.
That's what I was saying.
But this is one of the few times where I would say this is one of the few times where there's actually high leverage for anyone to learn this skill, and you can use it however you want. Imagine this is a blank canvas, but it's a very intelligent blank canvas. You could do so much with it. And you know what? You don't have to use Claude Code, because Claude Code, I pay like $200 a month. For me, it's a business expense. It makes sense for me. For some people, it might be out of reach. Economy's not doing too well right now. Business is tight. You can literally use things called Open Code, which is open source version of Claude Code, where you can download models on your computer. Yes, they're not as good, not as sophisticated, but maybe you're not trying to build a whole software business like I am. You don't need that firepower. Maybe you just need enough to help you write that marketing email, that LinkedIn post. And something like that could give you enough power.
Or maybe cancel all your AI wrapper or SaaS subscriptions and pay $100 a month for Claude Max and start leveraging Code, Cowork, and also Opus 4.5, which I think is the best model right now, hands down for business use.
For sure. If it is within reach, like we used to pay $1,200 a month in the business for AI subscriptions. We're now down to $300, and two of those $300 is the Claude Max plan because we've been able to build internally everything that we've been paying externally. And the key thing I want to just teach your audience this little thought: when you build a SaaS, you don't just have to make it work. You have to make it work for millions of people, theoretically. But when you build something for yourself, you just have to make it work for yourself. So the difference is like, if it took a SaaS 3 years to exist, it could take you 12 hours because you don't need it to work on Ryan's computer. You just need it to work on your computer. And that's the key difference here.
Yeah, I love that. We're going to dive into a quick rapid fire AI questions to kind of conclude this segment here. So we're going to start with this one, Mark. These are always some interesting ones I'd like to get your thoughts on. What do you think is a bigger risk here in 2026? Staying tool agnostic or doubling down on one ecosystem?
Staying tool agnostic. It's good to dig your heels and see which model resembles your workflow the most, the one that has the services that reside with you, because from here, everything will just be more exacerbated, meaning Anthropic will triple down on making the best next coding model in the world. Gemini will quadruple down on being the best super AI generalist in the world. OpenAI, God help them, whatever they plan to do, they're going to try to do something very disruptive because they're not dumb. They need money to raise. They have a lot of money they're burning. They need to make a huge mark. So they're going to make a dent in the market. But they also have very friendly models that people are familiar with in terms of the way they speak. So their APIs are very friendly. So pick what works for you, dive deep. And the best part is you have transferable skills, meaning if you go down the path of OpenAI and you realize that it's not the best or it's not the best at XYZ, or you could have greener pastures with Gemini, as soon as you learn that side, it's transferable to the next side.
Yeah, that was a good explanation there. So what do you think is more valuable right now? A workflow of AI agents or one human with Claude Code?
One human with Claude Code, because excuse my French, but there's a lot of mental masturbation when it comes to agents.
I agree with that.
If you don't know what you're doing to begin with, layering on an agent exacerbates, amplifies how much you don't know. It's kind of like having money and being a bad person. It amplifies how bad of a person you are. So agents don't make you powerful. You make yourself powerful. And once you are powerful, you can start to layering on agents once you understand where they work and where they work best.
Yeah. So what dies first, generic AI wrappers or browser-based no-code builders?
Ooh, that's a nice one. Generic AI wrappers.
Yeah. I could see that for sure. I thought wrappers had their day in the sun, 2 years ago, maybe?
Well, you have to be careful with the word wrapper because most companies up until now are like a database wrapper. So when we say wrappers, we're talking about the tools that have existed trying to solve one narrow thing that already exists as an API of its own that Claude Code could one shot in one go.
Right.
Meaningful companies like, if you're using ClickUp or using Go High Level, those are wrappers on top of databases,
Yeah.
tons of functionality. But their selling point is that they've created their own command center that's off the shelf, out of the box.
Everything's a wrapper when you really dig into it. Really, the differentiating point is the IP and the data at the end of the day.
Correct.
So let me ask you this. This is the final one here. What is one part of your entire process, Mark? What you just showed with Claude Code and your command center, that's all cool. But what is one part of your process you think you will never automate no matter how good this technology gets?
Making YouTube videos that are AI generated.
I was going to ask you a little bit. Why don't you just go to the HeyGen clone and start pumping that out with 11 Labs? Like, you're still bullish on the long form authentic video.
Yeah, so we found spots I'll give you an example where HeyGen makes sense for me. Let's say in the community, when we have tons of resources, the onboarding has to change every couple months because we shift so many things. HeyGen makes sense because you just want the information. You want it from me, and you want it in a way that is very often refreshed. Great use case for cloning myself and taking care of that. YouTube, your attention's already so minimal. Am I now going to take that little attention you have that you are giving me as a creator and offload it off to somebody else to build that relationship with you? To me, I'm going to see it do well. I'm already seeing channels blow up using that, unfortunately. But I do think that when everything becomes AI, people will miss the vintage human flaws, the stuttering, the looking to the side accidentally, me scraping my words together. I think there will still be value there. So I'm tripling down on the human touch, because in a world full of fake perfection, people will crave authenticity. And that's what I'm really doubling down on.
I've been saying that for a while. I think we're in the trust recession right now, and AI is only accelerating that even more. So, on that note, Mark, really appreciate your time. Where can people follow you to learn more about what you're doing online?
For sure. So YouTube for sure. Mark _Kashef. I just started out on LinkedIn, going hard. I'm posting every day now. Yeah, I'm gonna be very, very active on YouTube, especially on the Claude Code side. So if that interested you, that piqued your interest for sure. And then if you want to go in the deep end, that's what my community is for, where we have almost 800 people every day trying to level themselves up to the next level and trying to do the best they can with AI.
Awesome. I'll leave all those links in the description below. Thanks again for your time, Mark. And thanks again to everyone for listening or watching to this edition of AI Rabbit Holes. Be sure to tune in again next time.
Cheers.